The coffee was still brewing when I heard the garage door rumble open. Too early. 6:30 on a Tuesday. My hand, pouring orange juice into a dinosaur-shaped cup, froze. That sound, the one that meant he was home, usually filled me with a lazy sort of joy. Tonight, dinner together, maybe a walk after. But now, in the harsh morning light, it was just wrong. "Mommy, Daddy's home," Chloe chirped in her booster seat, a ring of juice already around her mouth. "He must have forgotten something, Sweet Pea," I said, my voice too bright. I wiped my hands on the towel and walked to the mudroom door. 2 police officers stood there, a man and a woman. Their faces were sheets of blank professional kindness. Behind them, the morning sun was a cruel, cheerful yellow. I saw their lips move. I heard words like accident, instant, no pain. My mind took the words, recognized them as English, but they just fell into a silent white void inside me. I remember the female officer stepping forward as if to catch me, but my knees didn't buckle. They locked. I became a statue of a woman in pajama pants and her husband's old college t-shirt holding a dish towel. "Ma'am, is there someone we can call?" I thought, Chloe's toast is going to burn. I turned and walked back to the kitchen. I turned off the toaster. I picked up the dinosaur cup and refilled it. The officers stood in the doorway of my kitchen, a surreal painting in uniform blue. "Mommy, who are they?" That's when the white noise cracked, a fissure so deep and violent it felt like my soul was being physically torn in two. I scooped Chloe up, juice and all, and held her so tight she squirmed. I didn't cry, not then. I just held on to the only living piece of him I had left. The weeks that followed were a fog of administered grief. Planning a funeral when all I wanted to do was bury my face in his side of the closet, breathing in the fading scent of his deodorant and woodshop sawdust. People brought casseroles. They said he was such a good man, and they were right. They said, "Let me know if you need anything," and I nodded, having no idea how to ask for a new heart, for a rewinding of time, for the ability to explain to a 4-year-old where Daddy's stars really were. Mark was a mechanic, a good one. He loved things he could fix with his hands. We weren't rich, but we were careful. Our life was a comfortable, worn-in couch, my part-time bookkeeping, his steady shop job, evenings on the porch swing, Chloe's laughter the best music. We had a small emergency fund, which evaporated between the deductible for the totaled truck and the expenses the life insurance, a modest policy he'd gotten when Chloe was born, didn't immediately cover. The fog of grief slowly lifted, only to reveal the stark, terrifying landscape of my new reality. The mortgage, the car payment, the health insurance premium that shot up like a rocket. The savings account number shrank before my eyes, a digital hourglass counting down to zero. I needed a full-time job. I updated my resume, my hands shaking. Gap in employment, it screamed at me. I'd been home, building a life. Now that life was a liability. Rejections. So many rejections. Overqualified. Not the right fit. Once, after a particularly hopeful interview, I got the call in the grocery store parking lot. We went with another candidate. I sat there, staring at a cart full of generic brands, and for the first time since the officers arrived, I sobbed. Great, heaving sobs that stole my breath. A woman loading bags into her minivan glanced over, then quickly looked away. I was a spectacle of despair. But then, a lifeline. An administrative assistant position at a small, family-run plumbing supply company. The owner, a gruff man in his 60s named Frank, interviewed me. He saw my desperation. I know he did. He asked about Chloe. He didn't care about the Gap. Can you be here at 8, keep the books straight, and handle contractors who have the vocabulary of sailors? He asked. Yes, I said, the word feeling like the first solid ground I'd stood on in months. Start Monday. It was hard, juggling daycare drop-offs, learning new software, pretending to be a person who had it together. But it was also a salvation, a rhythm, a reason to get dressed. I made a friend there too, Sarah. She was in sales, a few years older than me, funny and sharp. She took me under her wing, brought me coffee, made me laugh for the first time in what felt like centuries. She was a single mom too, she said. She got it. We started having lunch together every day. I began to trust her, to believe I had found an anchor in this new turbulent sea. I was wrong. It started small. A supplier invoice went missing. A customer complained they'd been overcharged. Frank would grumble and I'd scramble, always finding a paper trail, fixing the error. I felt clumsy, like I was failing. Then, one Tuesday, Frank called me into his cramped office. His face was like stone. He said, "The quarterly tax payment never went through." His voice was low. "The IRS is hitting us with penalties. Big ones." I pulled the bank records. He turned his computer monitor. It showed a transfer dated 6 weeks prior to an account I didn't recognize. The transaction description read, "Supplier payment, approved by finance." My login was on the authorization. My blood turned to ice. "Frank, I never made that transfer. I don't even have those permissions." "The permissions were updated last month. Sarah said you asked for them to handle the new vendor system. She okayed it with me." Sarah, my mouth dried. I remembered her suggesting it, offering to talk to Frank for me, to streamline things, she'd said. "Check the login history," I pleaded. "It must have been done after hours, or—" He sighed, a heavy, disappointed sound. "It was done from your computer, during business hours. Sarah saw you working on the transfers that afternoon." The betrayal was a physical blow. The lunches, the shared commiserations about daycare costs, the sympathetic ear when I cried about Mark, all of it a setup. She'd needed a scapegoat for her own embezzlement, and the grieving, vulnerable widow was perfect. My protests sounded weak, even to my own ears. The evidence was too neat. Frank, though not cruel, was a practical man. He couldn't risk it. "I can't prove you did it," he said finally, not looking at me. "But I can't prove you didn't. I have to let you go. I won't press charges for your girl's sake, but you need to leave, now." I packed my desk, my hands numb. Sarah was at a client lunch, the coward. I walked out into the blinding afternoon sun, unemployment and disgrace my only severance. The fall was harder this time. The hope had made the ground farther to drop. The bills mocked me from their pile on the counter. The fear was no longer a cold stone in my stomach. It was a live wire, buzzing through my veins every waking moment. I took any work I could find. Nighttime data entry, weekend shifts at a big box store. The hours were terrible, the pay a pittance. I was a ghost to my own daughter, kissing her sleeping forehead as I left, finding her drawings for me on the kitchen table when I dragged myself home. One Saturday afternoon, after a sleepless night shift, I was trying to muster the energy to fold laundry. Chloe was coloring at my feet. The sunlight caught her, this perfect, beautiful creature, and her little socks had holes in both toes. Her pants were too short. She looked up, her eyes, Mark's exact hazel eyes, so full of uncomplicated love. "Mommy?" Yes, my love? Lily at school has a new dress. It's blue with butterflies and light-up shoes. She said it not as a demand, but as the pure observational wonder of a child. It's so pretty. Can I maybe have a dress like that and light-up shoes for my birthday? Her birthday was 2 months away. The simple, innocent request shattered what was left of me. A dress, shoes, the most basic, joyful things a little girl should have, and I couldn't promise them. The calculator in my head was already running. The cost of a dress and those ridiculous, wonderful shoes versus the electric bill versus the gas to get to work. I felt a smile stretch my face, thin and brittle as glass. We'll see, baby. That sounds really pretty. I got up, mumbling something about checking the laundry. I walked into the pantry, closed the door, and slid down to the floor between a bag of rice and a box of cereal. In the dark, surrounded by the mundane proof that I couldn't even adequately stock my own shelves, I cried. Not the violent sobs of the parking lot, but a silent, endless stream of utter defeat. The tears were for the dress, for the shoes, for the father who would have bought them in a heartbeat. They were for the woman who believed she had a friend, for the husband whose side of the bed was forever cold, for the terrifying, yawning emptiness of the future. I muffled the sound in my own knees, a 32-year-old woman hiding in a pantry from her 4-year-old's dream of butterflies. I don't know how long I sat there, but when the tears finally stopped, they left a strange, hollow calm. This was the bottom, this dusty pantry floor. There was no farther to fall. And in that emptiness, a tiny, stubborn spark refused to go out. It was not dramatic. It was not a voice telling me I was a warrior. It was quieter than that. It was the memory of Chloe's hand in mine. It was the simple cellular knowledge that I was her only line between the world and the abyss. Giving up was a luxury I did not have. I stood up. I splashed water on my face. I went back out and finished folding the laundry. The climb back was slow, granular. It didn't start with a big idea. It started with admitting I needed a different path. Swallowing my pride, I went to a nonprofit for women in crisis. They helped me navigate applying for assistance, something I'd been too ashamed to do before. It was humbling, but it kept the lights on. I thought about what I could do. I was good with numbers. I was organized. I had a computer. I began offering virtual bookkeeping services for other tiny businesses, sole proprietors, independent crafters, a friend of a friend who started a landscaping service. I built a website on a free platform. My pitch was honesty. I know what it's like to worry about every penny. Let me handle the numbers so you can focus on your dream. One client led to two to 5. The work I could do at night after Chloe was asleep. The money was inconsistent, but it was mine. No one could take it from me by betrayal. I also started writing, just a private online journal at first. Then, tentatively, I shared a piece about grief not as a storm, but as a change in the weather of your life. The response from other women, other people who had lost, was a whisper of connection in the loneliness. A small blog followed. It didn't make money, but it made meaning. One evening, almost 2 years after the day in the pantry, I was at the kitchen table. Spreadsheets were open on my laptop, but my eyes were on Chloe. She was twirling in the living room, not in a new dress, but in a costume we'd pieced together from the thrift store, a sequined top and a tulle skirt. She was singing, utterly delighted with her own sparkle. The doorbell rang. It was a package. I wasn't expecting anything. I opened it to find a brand new pair of sneakers, the kind that light up with every step. They were exactly her size. There was no note. My breath caught. I looked at Chloe, then back at the shoes. A client had overpaid me last month. I'd insisted on sending back the difference, but she'd refused, saying my careful work had saved her more. I knew with sudden certainty what that overpayment was for. "Chloe, baby," I called, my voice thick. "Look what came for you." Her shriek of joy could have powered a city. She put them on immediately and spent the rest of the evening running in circles on the carpet, watching her feet flash red and blue. I didn't hide to cry this time. I sat at the table and let the tears come, quiet and warm. They weren't tears of lack anymore. They were tears of arrival. I had not replaced what was lost. I could never do that. Mark was a missing limb, a silence in the song of my life. But I had built something new around the absence, a fragile, resilient structure made of late nights, swallowed pride, small victories, and the immense, quiet force of a love that demanded I keep going. The financial fear was a quieter hum now, not a scream. The peace was not the absence of trouble, but the presence of a hard-won trust in myself. I am not a hero. I'm a mother who learned to bend so she wouldn't break. I am a woman who found that strength isn't something you have, it's something you choose, minute by minute, in the face of a quiet, desperate hour. It's folding the laundry after your heart has been shredded. It's getting up off the pantry floor. My life is different now, smaller in some ways, quieter, but it is mine. It is honest, and it holds in its center a little girl with light-up shoes, dancing in a living room filled with the kind of hope that is earned, not given, the kind that knows the darkness, but chooses to sparkle anyway.